Now it's time to dig into the gimmicks, rules, and gameplay. As you could tell, so far I was pretty happy with both the first play and the look of Transformers Limited Edition. Now the question is, does the game hold up after a few hundred plays? Well, let's find out. Keep in mind, I'm not going to reveal every little thing and talk too much about strategy. I mean, if this game looks fun to you, I'd rather you seek it out and play it for yourself. But don't worry, we will get pretty detailed and bring out a lot of the good as well as a lot of the bad. As mentioned in the first play, at the beginning you can choose whether you want to be a Decepticon or an Autobot. By hitting the flipper buttons, it swaps between the factions, and plunging the ball makes the selection. Whichever one you choose will determine the side you play for, the bad guys or the good guys. This even affects the game's main theme song. This machine is essentially two games in one, which in this reviewer's opinion is pretty darn unique. Another cool thing is you have not one, but 4 different skill shots right from the get-go. Plunging the ball hard so it arrives at the upper lanes will award you the regular or hands-free skill shot by dropping it down the flashing lane. Afterwards, it arrives into Devastator's pop bumpers. This bumper area is neat because on the dot matrix you see Devastator open his choppers, and the bumpers themselves are the internal gears. A mini award after hitting enough of them would be nice, like in Terminator 3 when you get the simple power surge bonus. But regardless, it is a good movie tie-in, and the ball exits out the left side. Devastator's flasher is bright. And by the way, remember when I made this smart aleck comment?
And a flasher. They gave us one flasher.
Well, guess what? This was the only bulb that burned out during my time with the game. So I guess I needed it after all. Now the super skill shot is awarded if you plunge the ball lightly and drop it down the small lane behind Megatron. The ball then shoots back out at the player. The final skill shot, and my favorite, is the Ironhide skill shot. Hold the left flipper in, plunge the ball, and then the upper control gate opens up, allowing the ball to sail all the way around. If you can hit the Ironhide right ramp, you'll get the award. I usually bounce it off the left flipper onto the right and backhand it up there. Bam! Now that you have chosen a faction and a skill shot, the ball is in play. Since we covered the various toys in the last part, let's look at their individual gimmicks and games. We might as well go in the same order, so let's begin with Optimus Prime. Prime is linked with a shot up the middle between his legs. In fact, it zips around and veers to the right, straight back at the player. If you get a few loops going, it's quite fun. After a required number of shots, the TF ramp will lift and allow you to jump the ball into the air and slam into Prime. This is kind of neat if you're not expecting it, because you don't really realize the ramp raises up. Every hit to Optimus causes a slight pulse on his foot to push him backward, so it seems like you hit him pretty hard. The gimmick overall works well, and unlike some others, I had no trouble with the switch registering a direct hit every time. Also notice when the ramp is up, the game pulses the lights along with the music, almost to say multi-ball is coming. It's really cool. After a required number of hits to Optimus, multi-ball begins. If you chose Decepticon, jackpots light for a short time, and hitting Prime will relight them. If you chose Autobot, you have to defeat various Decepticons around the playfield by shooting a lit shot twice. Then you hit Megatron's shot to defeat him and earn the super jackpot. This entire Optimus area is pretty fun to aim for, rewarding, and the multi-ball is good. Now we have Starscream at the top left and his gimmicks, which are exclusive to the limited editions. In fact, this is one of my favorite shots in the entire game. Hitting the left ramp will spell another letter in Starscream. Once completed, Screamer will begin moving back and forth as the hurry-up award begins counting down. But it's not like most hurry-ups. Instead, you have to time it so the ball rolls up and actually hits the red target between his legs. This is interesting because a soft shot won't make it all the way, and a mistimed shot will cause the ball to be deflected and the hurry-up will not be awarded. You really have to work at timing the shot. And getting good at this is beneficial because a few hits to the target will light the extra ball. For me, backhanding Starscream is the best method and extremely satisfying. The nice part of this area is the bit of randomness it has with the balls sometimes. It dribbles it into the bumpers, or out the left side, or returns it down the ramp, which it does most of the time. During a mode, this can be a bit disconcerting as you are quickly trying to complete shots, but it only bugged me a couple of times, and I love this entire area of the game. At first, I thought the ball flow would be severely hindered here because on the pro games, the ball whips back to the player quickly after a left ramp shot. But the LE version literally adds only a second to the ball travel, and Screamer is such a fun gimmick, it's worth the trade-off. As of version 1.2, there is a bug where Starscream will push the ball into the target and award multiple hits. I'm sure they will fix this with a future release, but I do kind of welcome this occasional help. Now to the opposite side, the LE exclusive Ironhide mini playfield area. This one I'm a bit torn about, not because of the look, because it looks great, but of the gameplay itself. Shooting the right ramp will spell another letter in Ironhide. Once completed, the playfield will be activated, trapping the ball inside. Hitting the flipper buttons will lean it one way or the other, and your goal is to bounce the ball back and forth off the rubbers. It works quite well, and you can eventually creep the ball up toward the top. As you roll over playfield optos, it registers a hit, and eventually you earn enough points to get a special. If you just hit the buttons furiously, the ball won't bounce back and forth very well. You need to time it, and eventually you'll get into a rhythm, which can be quite satisfying. I do notice some optos don't register if the ball's moving too fast, but if you can get the ball at the very top, almost a little bit above where you think you should be able to get it, you can really rack up some points. Notice the electromechanical pinball sounds? Some people have said they don't like this, but I kind of do because the entire game, sound effect-wise, is robot zips, baps, and boops, and well, to me, it's a nice change of pace. Now, I like this playfield, but I do have some issues with it. Unlike Starscream, the shot up the Ironhide ramp feels a bit clunky. This is mainly because it always goes into the mini playfield with each shot. The ball rolls up the ramp, into the playfield area, dribbles down, and finally returns to the player. Depending how much dribbling it does, sometimes it can add a few seconds to the ball's return. To me, the playfield should be closed off until it is ready to be used. For example, take the shot into the cup in Diner, which is closed until it is ready to be accessed. Then, the metal guide opens up and the ball can enter the cup. In this case, unless you've played the game, you really don't know until the ball is trapped there that you have mini playfield control. If anything, the game should go completely dark and only light the playfield area to help guide the player. Now, this game overall is extremely fast, and many have said that they love the fact that they can place a couple balls into the mini playfield to kind of slow things down. I get where they are coming from, and I do kind of agree, and this isn't a deal breaker, mind you, but where the Starscream areas seemed fun to shoot for, the Ironhide ramp just feels clunky, and I found myself avoiding it at times. Not to mention, the LEs were created for collectors, and while some indeed will put them on location, most will go into the home. So who cares to win a special at home? Now granted, I can change the special in the software to an extra ball, but really, the game should default to this already. The mini playfield just needs some extra rules, some game attached to it, or at the very least, a defaulted extra ball to make the gimmick more worthwhile and a lot of fun, which it almost is. Now to Megatron. Just like the Autobot leader, Megatron is the keeper of one of the main multi-balls. To light the lock, you need to knock down the drop target located right in front of the scoop. Then, you sink the balls into the scoop one after another. Then the game fires the balls out and the multi-ball begins. If you're playing as an Autobot, there are 6 shots lit for a short time. Once they disappear, you have to shoot Megatron to relight them. If you choose Decepticon, you continue to shoot jackpots until the Optimus ramp lifts up. After that, you hit Optimus to destroy him for a super jackpot. I love how this rule plays out as a Decepticon. It makes Megatron a solid enemy. When all 4 balls are locked, the opening multi-ball show is pretty great. Megatron lifts up, sort of transforms. The game starts flashing and lighting up, and the balls explode out of that cannon. Even when you're expecting it, it is still very exciting. The G1 arm cannon replica recoils with every shot and creates a really nice illusion that Megatron is shooting right at you. Even without the recoiling and movement, the Pro Edition, which has Megatron in tank form, also shoots out the balls in this way. I love this entire thing, and while it is one of my favorite things in the game, it's not flawless. First, let me talk about one thing which is being fixed as of this review. The drop target causes major air balls that smack into the glass and usually end up flying to the right side of the playfield. You get a little afraid to shoot that area, so it takes a bit of fun out of the whole thing because these balls can really cause some damage. Luckily, Stern has already said they are working on a fix for this issue and will be sending out, along with some other goodies, a kit to everyone soon. So we'll just leave that one alone. Secondly, I, along with others, are having issues with incorrect ball stacking in the trough underneath the lock. In my first play, you heard me say that they didn't shoot out all at once. What I meant was that they didn't shoot out one after another as they are supposed to. Instead, a few dribbled out. This is due to bad stacking inside the trough. Trust me, I tried every trick along with the fixes that Stern recommended to me, and it's still not very reliable on my machine. Even the pulsing effect added to the latest ROM doesn't help all that much. If you look close here, you'll see a couple balls jamming against the edge. This has caused a couple of cracks in my playfield, so I put some Mylar down around the entire area to protect it, and I suggest you do the same. Bumblebee is the captive ball, and after spelling Bumblebee, you will start double scoring. This is very lucrative if you can activate it during certain modes and multi-balls. Not to mention the sound effects and music here are pretty over the top. The Allspark Cube plays a crucial role in this game because it is the mystery award, but also it adds time during modes. This will come in handy very often. To light the cube, you have to hit all 3 blue targets. Then you shoot the scoop underneath the cube. During multi-ball, if you light the cube beforehand, which is a strategy in and of itself by the way, the cube will add a ball and a ball saver timer. If you're playing a mode, it will add time to the mode, which will really help because the timers are pretty short. The nice part is the cube will actually stack in the memory how many times you have lit it for a shot. Oh, and speaking of the blue targets, to me, there are 4 slingshots on this game. The 2 above the flippers, and the 2 blue targets right in the front. If you miss the shot into Megatron, they are extremely unforgiving. Similar to the mansion rooms in Addams Family or the TV awards in Family Guy, Transformers has modes, and a lot of them. Activating and completing them are really the main things in the game, and they really offer a lot of points. Each mode corresponds with a character on the playfield, and the mode itself usually revolves around a scene that character takes part in within the films. Notice they are split in two ways, and depending on which faction you choose, well, that will dictate which side you play first. This is where the Autobot and Decepticon symbols on the playfield come in. Shooting these will slowly build you up toward the next mode. The dot matrix will tell you how many shots remain. Unlike Addams, where you shoot the electric chair to start a mode, Transformers begins the mode automatically. This is a little bizarre at first because you really don't even know what's going on. In my first play, I started the Devastator mode and had no idea. But you will get used to it quickly, and in a way, it helps eliminate that stop-and-go feeling, keeping the game flowing fast. The modes at first seem very similar, as your goal is to shoot the required number of red arrows in a set amount of time. But as you play the game, you will find a lot of different personality and some subtleties with each one, making them seem less repetitious than you would think. If you don't complete a mode the first time around, which will happen most of the time, it retains in the memory where you left off. If the character is solid on the playfield and not blinking, congratulations, that means their mode is complete. Let's start with the good guys, the Autobots. The Ratchet mode begins with a ton of red lights lit all at once. Completing each shot awards a dot matrix scene showing Ratchet running into battle and kicking some tail. Mudflap and Skids is a two-ball multi-ball, which makes sense as they are twins. Instead of a timer, you play until the second ball is lost as you attempt to complete all the red arrows twice. The Allspark Cube adds a ball and a ball saber, so it's good to light that before starting the mode. In fact, stacking another multi-ball with this mode will also help you complete it faster. The Ironhide mode begins with a few lit shots at once and they jump all around the playfield. This is one of my favorite modes, mostly because of the great speech.
Let's bust some Decepted chops.
The Bumblebee mode begins with the barricade chase scene from the first film. This one acts as a hurry-up as well as a mode, as you need to swoop around the playfield and hit all the shots. You can really get some good flow going on here, eventually ending with a bump to the Bumblebee captive ball. Finally, we have the Optimus Prime multi-ball mode, which we discussed earlier. It's not as easy to defeat because you have to make a ton of shots, and unlike the rest of the modes, the progress is not carried over in the memory. So most of the time you will complete all the Autobot modes with good old Optimus just sitting there blinking. It's a bit frustrating, and I hope they will balance this better in future ROM releases. Now the Decepticons. Devastator Battle is quite fun as it lights the right orbit for the first shot, which leads into the bumpers. The Devastator bumpers move the next shot around the playfield. Then, this will be the next shot you are required to make once it exits the bumpers. After completing this shot, the right orbit relights and the process begins again.
Talk to me about classified, all right?
Blackout mode begins with one arrow lit at a time. Then two, then three. You essentially have to loop around the playfield and try to snag them all. The Shockwave mode begins with nightclub music. Yeah. Then it starts with one shot, eventually opening up a ton for you to aim for. Shockwave just destroys Chicago.
That is one scary-ass Decepticon.
The Starscream mode can be tough. He starts off with simple shots all around, but after a while, he kind of walks around the playfield, and you have to hit him when he crosses your path.
Fools, there's no escape.
Remember that personality I was talking about? This one has it in abundance. Finally, you have Megatron Multiball mode, which you need to complete. It is a little easier than Optimus, and you'll find yourself completing it more often. But there is no Skids and Mudflap Multiball on this faction side, so I guess it kind of balances it out. If you can complete all faction-specific modes, the Allspark Cube will start freaking out. Shooting it will toss you into a mini wizard mode. The Autobot side is Roll Out, and the Decepticon side is All Hail Megatron. They both have the same objectives, requiring you to shoot all the lit shots. This mode has Sentinel Prime blinking during it, but it has nothing to do with Sentinel Prime. In the Pro Edition, I have read that the mode is actually called Sentinel Prime Battle, so this version actually ties it all together a little better. But after completing a mini wizard mode on the LE, you do start to hear Sentinel taunting you as you continue on your mission, so that kind of makes sense.
That the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Now, just because you chose one faction over another doesn't mean you don't get to play the other side, because once you complete the mini wizard mode, you begin working on the other faction side. This will eventually lead you up to the Battle for Cybertron, the final wizard mode. Some people have criticized the game for a lack of cohesive story, but I find it to be a sort of play through the movies, collect each robot, and eventually battle for Cybertron to either save it as an Autobot or rule it as a Decepticon. It probably works better for people who are more familiar with the license, but then again, you could make this case for almost any licensed game in general. I really enjoy the modes in this one, and they are a challenge. I like how they are laid out and how the different games are incorporated based on the character and faction. I have to say, however, that the timers, required number of shots, and lack of memory carryover with multiballs makes the game feel a little unbalanced. I played a few hundred games and only completed a faction side once, missing the Allspark Cube shot at the last second. In games like Iron Man, for example, which kick your butt just the same, a good game will award you a wizard mode of some kind. In Transformers, you play for a while, but still, you get nowhere. Even though this difficulty initially brought me back in for more punishment, eventually I started to think that the game was kind of a bit unfair. I like a challenge, and I'm no pinball wuss. But after a few hundred plays, I should have reached some kind of major reward, at least once.
Sometimes cowards do survive.
So we have gimmicks, multi-balls, and modes. What else? Well, let's toss out some other miscellaneous stuff here at the back end of this review. Transformers plays extremely fast, so you need to snag extra balls whenever possible. That is why, to me, shooting Starscream is very important, and why the game should, at the very least, default to an extra ball in the Ironhide mini playfield. You can also get an extra ball by starting up 5 robot modes during a game. These include the opposite faction multi-ball. This will light the extra ball at the spinner, and I highly recommend timing some modes out if you're near the end of a game, just to get this one lit. I have to give thumbs up to the dot matrix animations. They mixed in some great clips from the films as well as original artwork. I love how, depending on what mode is currently lit, you will see that character sweeping across the screen. The various Constructicons driving by, man, that's a really great touch. Plus, there is a bunch of nostalgia thrown in, such as Soundwave appearing in Generation 1 tape deck mode, or Grimlock stamping by after completing Roll Out. And speaking of Soundwave, I wish he, along with maybe his third movie Mercedes form, were in the game somewhere, because Soundwave is a favorite character of mine in really every incarnation of Transformers. He appeared in the first release of the ROM. You heard him say Soundwave acknowledges at the ball plunge. but since then he has disappeared, so I hope he is added back in later. Speaking of nostalgia, the sound in this game is chocked full of it. The more than meets the eye theme song variations during modes and multi-ball are a welcome touch. There is a ton of wonderful music in this game, and almost every mode seems to have a different track. They even tossed in a variation of the Bumblebee barricade chase music from the first film during Bumblebee mode. I have to say, I love the music. The speech used is pretty good, ranging from human characters to Peter Cullen narrating randomly,
Some wanted it for good, others for evil.
to the custom speech for Starscream and Ironhide, which is great.
You flesh creatures will pay for that.
The sound effects are fantastic, and honestly, I don't think I have ever heard most of them on any pinball machine before.
Looking for the off-market.
Unfortunately, the Optimus Prime sound-alike is...
Multipliers are lit.
ugh. Now, I heard a rumor that Stern had every intention of getting Peter Cullen. However, for one reason or another, it was not in the cards. So, I'm not mad at Stern, but this probably studio-approved sound-alike might be great for tinny boxes found in Transformers toys, but doesn't quite cut it at all in the great sound of this pinball machine.
We need to be ever vigilant.
And right after that, you'll hear the real Cullen say,
In the name of freedom, we take the battle to them.
and while I'm sure the non-Transformers fans won't even realize it is supposed to be Optimus, sorry, they are not even close. Other than my geeky fanboy nitpicking, the sound and animations in this game are absolutely fantastic. The shaker motor is very tastefully done. I think sometimes shaker motors are grossly overused and add nothing really at all. While this one could use a little more oomph at times, the minimalistic nature of it adds a subtle feel, which is really good. The skids and mudflap targets eventually light fast scoring, which is basically a timed frenzy. The shaker motor has a ton of fun with this one, and it's a great mode to get moving. This game incorporated a change to the typical moving the lit lanes with the flippers trick, and I quite enjoy it. This time, the left flipper only moves the Decepticon rollovers, and the right flipper moves the Autobot ones. Whatever faction you choose changes how these work. If you're an Autobot, for example, completing the Autobot rollovers top and bottom will light the shot multiplier on the playfield. The next shot you make will double everything on that shot for the rest of the ball. Completing the Decepticon rollovers will increase your bonus X. Choosing the other faction swaps around these awards. It seems awkward at first, but you get used to it really fast, and it's fun and a very subtle, welcome change. Notice the dot matrix in version 1.2 says combo and awards you extra points. Every consecutive shot around the playfield gives you a subtle combo award, increasing your score. It's a nice little touch, although I hope they will draw a bit more attention to it in the future because it can easily get lost. Now, I have to mention the drains because as they ship from the factory, they have no rubber and are open all the way. They almost seem like giant gobble holes on either side of the playfield, and this added some serious frustration for me. In the future, I will be adding some rubbers to this area and moving the posts to a default middle, probably more like it was originally intended. I mentioned in the past that this game has QR codes around the translite and on the playfield, etc. If you have access to a phone that can scan these particular codes, it will take you to some various things. It mostly sends you to the Stern website where you can enter contests, or check out artwork from the game itself, or get some information on playing tips, including some videos. It is something they incorporated brand new in Transformers, and it's a neat little touch. there is a part of me that wishes they had put more time and effort into some other things instead of worrying about those, but they are kind of cool, and I'd like to see how they implement these a little more in the future. Some complain that the limited editions have less ball flow due to the ramps having gimmicks on them, but there is a second control gate that opens up in the back of the game. During modes and multi-balls, it sends the ball screaming around the back right to the flipper and really speeds up the game. The Pro Edition always sets the ball into the bumpers if shot around the right loop. I think it's a personal preference here which one you like better, you know? The LE version adds a second to the hang time in the ramps, where the Pro Edition has less flow during modes and multi-balls. Look, whichever one you play, they are both extremely fast games. Well, there you have it. There is a long look at the new Transformers Limited Edition pinball machine by Stern. If you're still awake, thank you very much for watching. Before I give you my final thoughts, though, I have a couple of updates that I would just like to fill you in on here. I did research it, and indeed, my coin door was missing a sticker. I contacted Stern, and they are sending me out one this week. Thanks, guys. Also, Stern just completed a fix for the airball drop target issue, which is a heavy piece of plastic with artwork on it that goes directly above the target. Also inside this power pack will be some items I complained about in my review, such as a promotional keychain, woohoo! Rubbers for the outlanes to add more bounce, thank God. A Bumblebee plastic protector, and more. Now, unfortunately, I'll be putting my game here in storage once I finish this review, so I won't be able to add any of these things when they arrive. But it's great to know that Stern is following through with fixes and updates and improving the game. Now, for my final thoughts. I had some people ask me if I could give the game a letter grade. Honestly, I've never thought about that kind of a grading system for pinball before. But if I am going with my gut and basing it on my review of the game as it shipped with the ROM release of 1.2, I would have to say that Transformers Limited Edition is a solid B. It has a lot of great features. The two games in one aspect is great. The shots are fast. The Starscream area is a blast. I like a lot of the gimmicks in the game. The way the cannon fires out is really exciting. The sounds are awesome. The dot matrix is great. And aside from something actually transforming on the playfield, I'd have to say it treats the license really well. But it is not an A game. I don't have any buyer regret, which is good, but for the money this game goes for, I felt a little extra picky with it, and some things just need to be improved. That Ironhide mini playfield needs something more. The rules need to be balanced a little better to make it a little bit more fair. And when I can set the game up again, install all the goodies and fixes, update the hopefully final code, which a rumored major update is in the works for, plus get a little more play on it, I am hoping in the future when it's kind of bulletproofed and finished that I can raise that letter grade into the A territory. Do I smell a Transformers LE review part 4? You betcha, so look for it. Okay everybody, this is Chris Bucci, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Keep on flipping.